Very simple little English. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like you're remembering what he just said. Okay? It's a simple, there's a pattern in what he says. Not that he's speaking in Hebrew poetry, but at any rate, when you say yes, and then you don't, is when trouble happens. Okay? When you say yes to guard the covenant, and then you don't guard the covenant, there's going to be problems. So the writer of this song actually knows the audience very well. Well, he should. Moses has spent 40 years with these people, right? And in the learning of the words of this song, Israel will know that what happens in the years to follow, what happens, their destruction, if it ever comes, and exile, if that ever comes, came about because of them departing from the covenant that they had said yes to. I gave you, and I put this on your notes there. This is a verse snapshot. 1 through 3, heaven and earth are being summoned to be witnesses. It's going to talk about the faithfulness of God. It's going to talk about how God guided them with safe passage through the wilderness. It's going to talk about Israel's lapse into idolatry. These are your words that they're learning. They memorize stuff, and so that it was there, because there wasn't a Barnes and Noble out in the wilderness, don't you know? So, and how God is he threatens national disaster, all the way from national disaster to national extinction. And then it's going to talk about what happens when other nations are going to go too far. It's going to talk about how vengeance belongs to God and recompense also belongs to him. It's going to talk about how Moses and Joshua spoke all the words of this song in the hearing of the people. Set your hearts on all these words. Tell them to your children. Be careful to guard the Torah and to possess the land. And then Moses is going to go up on Mount Nebo and die. Okay, so that's kind of the snapshot of this chapter. So, and obviously this song is a teaching song. It's a lesson. So if the covenant ever, if way down the road and far, far away, if the covenant ever seems like it has come to tatters, if God ever seems too far away, then recall this song and it will tell you where you went wrong. Everything they need to know is in the song of Moses. It's like everything you needed to know you learned in kindergarten, right? Okay. If you ever get lost or feel that you have gone astray, call out to him. He will be found by you, provided that your heart is softened. Okay? We can't go looking for God with an angry heart. Probably. I don't know, maybe you can't. I don't know. Anyway,
We can.
We can.
Yeah.
It's kind of harder to find it that way, huh? So I love this picture because this is kind of a picture of our lives. Somewhere out there, sometime in the future, the Song of Moses will help you find your way home and where gaps are in your life. Like here, oh yeah, I can't get from there to here. And here just kind of ends. And then, you know, what do you do when the road ends? Yeah, go back. That's what Abraham did. Went back to the last time you'd heard from him. And sometimes that's what you need to do. Sometimes when things are it's just so noisy in your head or whatever, and your life is just so frustrating, sometimes you just need to sit down and say, okay, wait just a minute. I'm going to sit here and think about when's the last time I heard from the Lord. And go back to that point and start over. Go back there and say, I remember that day, da-da-da-da-da. And he'll let you rewind the time a little bit, okay? So, we're going to look at a couple verses before we even get started. God provided the way for us to find him, okay? He's at the end of the rainbow every time. The rainbow is just, what is a rainbow? It's light. It's light coming through prism. Okay, let's take a look. Somebody grab Isaiah 49:6. And somebody else grab Isaiah 42, 6 and 7, 6 and 7. And somebody grab Acts 13, 47, and somebody else grab Luke 2, 32. Let's just see what those verses have to say.
I got the first one.
You got the first one, Isaiah 49, 6? Perfect. Okay.
And he said, "It is a light thing that thou shouldst be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth."
Okay. He's talking about his Messiah there. He's going to give him as a light to the Gentiles. That's why Yeshua is such a big deal in the nations around the world. He's a light to the Gentiles, right? That you should be my salvation, and if you put that into Hebrew, you would say that you would be my Yeshua. To the ends of the earth, to the ends of all the earth, okay? All right, how about Isaiah 42, 6 and 7? You got that?
I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness. I will take hold of your hand. I will keep you and will make you to be a covenant for the people and a light for the Gentiles, to open eyes that are blind, to free captives from prison, and to release from the dungeon those who sit in darkness.
He's talking about Yeshua once again, isn't he? He's going to be, what? A covenant to the people. And a light to the Gentiles, a light to the nations. So when we have him living in us, that's exactly what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to have this light coming out of us. I'm not saying that you're Jesus, but there should be Jesus in you, and I should be able to see Jesus in you. And you should be able to see Jesus in me. Okay? And that's who we're representing ourselves to the rest of the world. Which is why we don't go around getting angry. I love Myra's little caveat to this. And we aren't going to get angry. We're not going to get upset. We're not going to get mad. We're going to come to understanding of how we're coming to understanding as to how God's word works. That's what this song is going to help us do today. Okay, so how about where are we? Acts 13:47. Who's got that?
For so our Master has commanded us. I have set you for a light to the nations, that you be for salvation to the end of the earth.
Would you read that one more time?
Yep.
Listen very carefully to what that says.
For so our Master has commanded us. I have set you for a light to the nations, that you be for salvation to the end of the earth.
See? That's exactly what we just said. He commanded his disciples to be a light to the nations. To the ends of the earth even. I mean, what he said in Isaiah to the Messiah, he's now saying to his disciples. Right? Wow. Just in case you think you didn't have anything to do, you've got something to do.
Mm-hmm.
Even as just how you live your life and how you respond to things, right?
Very much.
Okay, and one more. Luke 2:32.
Luke 2:32, a light to bring revelation to the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel.
Okay. And that's speaking prophetically of Yeshua and the birth of Yeshua. This boy that was going to be born was going to be, say it again, Tina?
A light to bring revelation and glory to the people of Israel.
Okay. A light to the Gentiles?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's a beautiful picture of Jesus in you. It's a beautiful picture of Jesus. It's a beautiful picture of you, and it's a beautiful picture of Jesus in you. Right? That's who we're to be. You're to be as beautiful as this rainbow is. I love rainbows. Just the very, to see, and picture was taken this week up in Estes Park, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
So really?
Etta sent this down to me. Yeah, isn't that gorgeous? It's just gorgeous.
Was that enhanced or anything?
Is it what?
Was it enhanced, do you think? Or
What?
enhanced?
Oh, I don't.
I think it was really,
Just a picture
that-
on Facebook.
that's
It
really
says
distinct, like the
morning.
green is really distinct.
Yeah.
The elk down here.
Oh,
That's
nice.
a great picture.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
really.
that's not a Photoshop picture, that's really good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been good to see that, and I'm sure there are some, but we don't hear about them that much, that very many, or not many, Republicans haven't come out like the Democrats with so much violence and
Right.
foul language and foul,
Oh,
words.
gee.
That kind of response doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
At all.
It's good to see that they just, for the most part, have held their own,
Right, exactly.
held their tongue.
Yep. Hold your tongue. Okay, so we're gonna get started now. We're gonna read 1 through 14. And Joel, can you hear?
I was gonna say, would you like to mic up?
Oh,
Right.
We'll put the microphone on halfway through the
Yes.
service. How's
Ask the
that? That'll
AV
work.
guy, what's going
Ask
on?
the
I
AV.
tested it.
Yeah.
It should be good.
Okay. You're gonna give somebody a,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
By the way, Joe, I listened to last week's sermon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's very good.
Thank you for doing that.
Good. You bet.
you guys see it?
On YouTube.
Did it get all the way through?
Well, the very end was not, but.
Okay, yeah. Wow.
Cool.
I need
Cool.
to find it.
You could even see her walking around,
Mhm.
hear people in the background talking. It was very good.
Nice.
All right. So, Mr. Bill, do you have your glasses?
Mhm.
And do you have Deuteronomy 32?
Yep.
I'm gonna have you read 1 through 14.
Okay.
And you've got your Bible.
I have the-
Okay, I'm gonna have you read the next part of it, so
Okay.
I might have to share a microphone. But, Deuteronomy 32.
Who's reading the
You are.
second part? No, who's reading?
Let's do this here.
Sonia.
Good.
Bill, if you could just hold this. That other one keeps cutting out. I'm not sure why right now.
Okay.
So that one's been working good.
32, 1 through 14. Here we go. Song of Moses.
Of course, you could clip it if you want to. It'll work fine either way. So.
I'm gonna go over here. So I can give the
Oh, okay.
microphone to somebody.
Oh, I can come up there.
This is cool. It works here.
That's a swivel chair.
How's this, Joel? How's this, Joel? How's this, Joel?
You go ahead.
Okay. Then Moses spoke to the hearing of all the assembly of Israel the words of this song until they were ended. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Let my teachings drop as the rain, my speech distill as the dew, as raindrops on the tender herb and the showers on the grass. For I proclaim the name of the Lord. Ascribe greatness to our God. For he is the rock. His work is perfect. For all his ways are justice. And God of truth, a God of truth, and without injustice. Righteous and upright is he. How far am I going?
Good, 14.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, by golly. And they have corrupted themselves. They are not his children because of their blemish, a perverse and crooked generation. Do you thus deal with the Lord, O foolish and unwise people? Is he not your father who brought you? Has he not made you and established you? Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you, your elders, and they will tell you. When the Most High divided their inheritance to the nations, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the place of his inheritance. He found him in the desert land, and in the wasteland a howling wilderness. He encircled him, he instructed him, he kept him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirs up its nests, hovers over its young, spreading out its wings, taking them up, and carrying them on its wings. So the Lord has alone led him, and there was no foreign god with him. He made him ride in the heights of the earth, that he might eat the produce of the fields. He made him draw honey from the rock, and oil from the flinty rock, curds of the cattle, and milk of the flock, with the fat of the lambs, the rams of the bread of Bashan, and goats, and the choicest wheat, and you drank wine and the blood of grapes.
All righty, let's talk about this just a little bit here. This is, these 14 verses are just filled with blessing and how God cared for Israel. Okay, it's kind of a history of that. So let me ask you a question. Who is to hear, or Shema, well, Shema means hear, right? Who's supposed to hear this song? Besides the children of Israel. Yeah. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. This song bears witness to God's character and his gracious provisions. This is who he is, how he chose them, how he picked them out, how he provided for them, how he protected them. And then I've got a line of exclamation points here. However, that's verses 4 through 14. But we're in 15 through 18, we'll hear something different. We'll hear about Israel's kind of twisted response. And we'll hear the result, how God will turn his face from them for a time. Those are verses 19 through 27, which we haven't read yet, and we will. And how ruthless enemies will come. And if you look at this, I marked this, ruthless enemies will come. That's going to cover a period of 70 AD to 1945. That's a very long time.
Yes.
I'm going to remind you that there were 2 temples. Solomon's temple, it was taken down, and they were taken out of the land. How long were they gone? 70 years, right? They came back, Jerusalem was built back up again, another temple was built, and it was taken down again in 70 AD. And from that point in time, which we'll get into next week, the Jewish people were gone from the land. They're gone. They're gone. And in 1948, that's a long time. From 70 AD to 1948, that's a very long time. They came back, and in 1967, Jerusalem came back into their hands. Well, that's the end of World War II. I probably should have put 48. 1948, but they were agreed that was the nation. 1967, Jerusalem comes back into their hands. And you know what? He says, the Bible says, when he brings them back the second time, they will never be uprooted from that land. That tells me they're going to find out Yeshua in their time. And they're holding that land there for years. And if you ever have an opportunity to go to that land, you don't want to pass it up. Because if you're appointed in Jerusalem, I said, well, we're going to be able to take it. We're going to be able to people, and I will let any of them on that land. I keep people going home, and most of them are coming, and we're going to do this again next year. Still not like, I think it's in my wish list right now, but I think it's going to be, it's very real. It's going to happen again. So I want you guys to start putting your pennies away, stash them away, because it's an awesome way. We're going to go. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes, we will.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Aren't we?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yep. It's just
It's like a volcano almost, isn't it? Yeah, all right. And God will vindicate his people and restore justice, and that's what's been going on since, there's my 1948 bill, 1948 to the present. And this is just amazing what we're watching happen. So at any rate, so what we're going to take a look right now, heaven and earth will hear this testimony. It's like a summons. He's summoning the heavens and the earth to be a witness for him. Okay, and because God is going to, it's called a riv. It's an ancient lawsuit that a king would bring against his vassal. Okay, so in the days to come when they need this, so picture this. We have an actual courtroom going on here. If you can picture a courtroom. Notice that I've got the Israeli flag and everything. Okay, picture this. A subpoena has gone out summoning God and Israel to court to give testimony. Okay? This is not on your thing. You're just going to have to take notes and take a picture of it if you want to later, but I didn't have enough room. Myra, I'm going to get you to read the testimony, if you will. You're going to play the part of God. I'm going to play the part of the bailiff. Okay? So heaven and earth are here to hear this case. Call your first witness, please, so that bailiff says, okay, state your name for the record and why you are here. Okay, you ready?
My name is Yehovah. Shorter version is Yud-He-Vav-He. I am creator of heaven and earth. I called forth Abram to a land and changed his name to Abram. I miraculously caused Abraham and his wife Sarah to bear her only son, Isaac. Although he had other sons, Isaac was the son I had promised to him, and then asked him to offer that son to me. He did. Then I promised that I would bless his descendants abundantly. I gave Isaac and his wife twins, Esau, whom I did not choose, and Jacob, whom I did choose. I renamed Jacob Israel. After he wrestled with me, he fathered 12 sons.
Keep going.
The reason for this call to court today, I am the father of the children of Israel. Today, my children stand on the edge of the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I have given them this covenant, which will serve as a constitution for my nation to live by. If they follow and obey my instructions, Israel will live long in the land and prosper, they and their descendants. They are to serve as my witness to all the other nations of the earth. I will abide by my words of this covenant. I expect my children to abide by them as well. I have instructed Moses to teach them this song, to put it in their mouths. This song will, itself, tell them their own story, their success as a people when they abide by the terms of the covenant and or the consequences of their behavior when they don't.
Okay, that's God's testimony. Now, heaven and earth are the ones that are listening and know this of Israel, and now you will know it too, okay? The bailiff continues and is calling Israel. For the record, tell us who you are and why you are here. Keep going, Myra.
Am I reading this?
Yep.
For the record, tell us who you are and why you are here. We are the children of Israel, those redeemed from Egypt by the hand of Yud-He-Vav-He. We have been wandering in the wilderness, awaiting the time to take possession of the rest of our land of inheritance. Moses has been our leader and instructor for 40 years. Our parents said yes to whatever God told Moses at Mount Sinai. Then came that unfortunate golden calf incident. We have been in the wilderness since then. The first generation is all gone except for two, Joshua and Caleb. We are willing and prepared to take the rest of the land on the other side of the river, the land promised to our forefathers. However, Moses has a song for us to learn and to teach our children.
Okay, thank you. All right. So God describes God in verse 4 as a rock. It's the first use in the scripture. I think it's used 3 or maybe 4 times in the Bible. So from the days of Abraham to the days of leaving Egypt, it's been 430 years. God has been true to his word. He's going to give this land to the descendants of Abraham. He and Moses write the covenant on a scroll to be placed by the Ark of the Covenant. He will be true to his word, and now he is having Moses teach them a song. It will be in their mouths. They are to teach it to their children and their grandchildren. And when things go wrong, and they will, this song that is in their own mouth will serve as a witness to them that they have not obeyed the covenant. So this song, as Bill read, described God as perfect. That's the word Tom, remember? T-A-M, Tom, Tamim. Perfect, blameless. His works are just. He is faithful. He is never false. He is righteous, and he is upright. Those are the words that the covenant used to describe who he is. Now, the next words, group of words, are the words that describe who Israel is. Israel is described as corrupt. They become not his children. They're blemished. They're a corrupt generation, and they're crooked, as in they're not upright or not straight. God is upright. They're going to be described as crooked. This is what's going to befall them in the days ahead. The song is more like an intervention. According to 31:19-21, the purpose of the song was to confront Israel with the truth. Their suffering will be caused by their own defection from God's word. God is a rock, meaning that he will not change. Do you remember the song we all learned in Sunday school? Build your house upon the rock. And don't be the guy that builds his house upon the sand, because the rains will come and the storm will come and we'll all sinking sand. Everything will come tumbling down. But if we build it on the rock, it doesn't matter how hard the wind blows. Did the wind blow at anybody's house last night? It was really bad. So remember, he says, unlike other nations, God had the children of Israel. This is very important. And it's very unique. God had the children of Israel become a nation before they ever had a land. Usually it's the other way around. A land already cultivated and built up by others. And he says, I will take you to myself as a people, and then I will bring you into the land. But before he brought them into the land, he gave them his covenant, which is going to serve as their constitution. We didn't get our constitution here in America until after we had the land, right? Revolutionary War, 1776. We didn't get the Constitution until 1789. But guess what? It was based on this covenant. It was based on this covenant here. Okay. So, Bill said, for the Lord's portion is his people, and Jacob is the place of his inheritance. God had ordered the nations, he numbered them, he set the boundaries for them according to his selection of Israel as his nation. The enemy today wants to do what with borders of nations? Just erase them. Doesn't mean anything. And the Torah is very, very set about not moving border boundaries. What are they called? Stones, marker stones, boundary stones. And they would have us just open up that happened, they did that in Europe. Didn't work out very well. Oh boy. They did that in Europe. It doesn't work out very well. I'm just being reminded. Okay, I'll do this. The big thing that faces America is we have aborted 70 million of our babies. I think we're up to 70 million. And I remember this study, this is from, I don't know, last summer sometime. It takes for a man and a wife to get married, they need to have 2.7 children just to keep the population of their country at a steady rate. 2.7 children. Okay? In America, we're 6, I think, or 1.7, something like that. And eventually, you put it out there far enough,
We've gone away. There won't be any of us. And the Islamic people, Muslim people, and we're a lot better than places over in Europe. They're just killing people off like crazy. And their French is down to less than one person, I think, per couple, right? But the Islamic nation, the Islamic people, their birth rate is 8-point-something children. You see how those? We'll just wait. We'll just wait. We'll just outpopulate them eventually. That's what's going on in Europe now.
Patient predator.
The patient predator. That's it. The patient predator program. Islam the enemy will either buy them out or we'll just outpopulate them. And by the way, you guys keep that abortion stuff going on because that's working really well for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're fighting it so hard. That's why they're fighting it so hard. Yeah. And things are about to be exposed big time. I'm going to play a clip for you here after a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
One of our first mandates, and I had to read where you talk, but one of our first mandates was to reproduce and take over the land, take care of the land.
Yeah?
And we just ignored that. Money is more important than God's word.
Right.
That happened in our generation. Yeah, in our generation. Remember the 1970s when we were all getting married, and they said, "Well, there's not enough resources, so you really just repopulate yourself. That's your duty. Just the heck with it. Don't have these big, large families." I mean, how many of us all came from large families? Right? Yeah. Anyway, all right. God ordered the nations, numbered them, set the boundaries for them. God set the boundaries for them according to his selection of Israel as his nation. Israel is his portion of the nations. And let's say this another way. Let's say that. What other way are we going to say this? The nations revolve around the history of Israel. That's a true statement. Look at this. Here's a map. Here's little Israel. Israel was the center of the ancient world. Just to give you a little bit of a visual there, okay? So this started out as a pretty little melody, didn't it? With the blessings. Israel attained mental and moral accomplishment, and at the same time attained physical health and material accomplishments. They became very wealthy. They were a very wealthy nation. In 70 AD, going back to 70 AD, in 65 AD, in 70 AD what happened? Just for the tape? What? Down came the temple, and dispersed went all the Jews. They were all taken out of there. Many of them killed, and the rest of them dispersed throughout the land. But in 65 AD, that's just 5 years prior, Jerusalem was.
It was the gem of the world. It was one of the wonders of the world. With that wonderful
That Herod built. And at Passover time, history tells us this, at Passover, 65 AD, there were 3 million people in Jerusalem. Had gone to Jerusalem for Passover. That's amazing.
That's how many people he brought out of Egypt, right?
I know, isn't that amazing that the number kind of keeps staying there? You caught that, very good. They attained physical health and material accomplishments. And you drank the wine, the blood of grapes. And this symbolizes great joy. The blood of grapes is an idiom for great joy. And this is why Yeshua is likened to wine in his blood. We pick up the wine, we'll take communion, we pick up the wine. It's wine, it's not blood, but it represents his blood. This should be a very joyous thing. He says, when you do this, in the future, when you do this in remembrance of me. This is not the grapes of wrath. These are the grapes of great joy because of what Yeshua has done for us. Okay, so what happens here? We're going to from 15 to 43, the focus is going to totally change. How God cared for Israel is abandoned.
Now it speaks of disloyalty that Israel shows towards God. Can you say, uh-oh? They have been blessed and they've been taken care of, and yet show no need for Yah's covenant. Uh-oh. They think of themselves as self-sufficient, and then Israel's enemies will take credit for destroying them. Uh-oh. Let's see what happens. 15 through 43, if you would.
Okay. But Jeshurun grew fat and kicked. You grew fat, thick, and sated. And he abandoned God who made him and fell away from the rock of his salvation. With strange gods they moved him to jealousy, and with idols they provoked him to anger. They sacrificed to demons who were not God, to gods whom they did not know, new ones who came lately. Your fathers had not dreaded them. The rock that begot you, you neglected, and you forgot the God who formed you. And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh looked and despised them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be, for they are a perverse generation, sons in whom is no faithfulness. They made me jealous with another God. They made me angry by their vanities, and I shall make them jealous by not a people. By a foolish nation I shall make them angry. For a fire has been kindled in my anger, and it burns to the lowest part of Sheol, and consumes the earth and its produce, and sets on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap evils on them. I will use up my arrows on them. I will send on them exhaustion by famine, and depletion by burning heat and bitter, and the teeth of beasts, with the venom of crawling things of the dust. The sword shall brave from without and tear from within, both the young man and the virgin, the suckling and the man of gray hairs. I said, I will dash them to pieces. I will make their memory cease from among men, saying, were it not the provocation of an enemy I feared, that their foes should judge amiss, that they might not say, your hand is high, and Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh has done all this. For they are a nation void of counsel, and no understanding is in them. If they were wise, they would understand this. They would comprehend their latter end. How could one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, if it were not their rock that sold them, and Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh had shut them up? For their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies being judges. For their vine is the vine of Sodom, and their grapes of the fields of Gomorrah, grapes of gall. They have bitter clusters. Their wine is the venom of serpents, and the cruel venom of asps. Is it not stored up with me, sealed in my treasuries? Vengeance and retribution belong to me. In due time their foot will slip. For the day of their calamity is near, and the things prepared are hurrying for them. For Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh will bring his people justice, and he shall have compassion on his servants. For he sees that their power is gone, and only the imprisoned and abandoned remained. And he will say, where are their gods, the rock in which they sought refuge? Who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you. Let it be a hiding place for you. See now that I am he, and other gods are nothing against me. I kill and I preserve alive. I wound and I heal. There is no deliverer from my hand. For I lift up my hand to the heavens, and I say, I live forever. If I have sharpened my lightning sword, and my hand lays hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to my foes, and I will repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, with the blood of the slain and of the captives, from the hairy head of the enemy. Rejoice, O nations, with him, and let the cherubs of God worship him. Rejoice, you nations, with his people, for he shall avenge the blood of his servants, and shall render vengeance to his foes, and will atone for his land and his people.
Okay. Those are very heavy words, and they are not easy to translate, let alone understand. However, you come back next week, and we will show you
that in 70 AD, that's exactly what happened. Word, almost, I'm reading that, listening to, it's right down the line from the glittering sword. Did you read something about a glittering sword? There's a glittering sword that hung over Jerusalem for months. It was like a light that looked like a glittering sword that hung over Jerusalem. Maybe for 3.5 years, I don't remember. Anyway, it's talking about something in the sky, what people saw. You will see signs in the heaven. And after 14, the blessings are done, and now this is what's going to happen when you walk away from the covenant. The blessings end, and Yeshurun, which means the upright one, except they became crooked. Remember? Okay. This is a pet name. This is like you all have pet names for your spouses, right, or something. But Yeshurun was like a pet name almost. It means upright, and it's a term of endearment. But they forgot their moral purpose, that was to be upright. In verse 17, we've got demons. And what are demons but invisible forces that are injurious, that will injure the growth and the prosperity of people? They sacrifice to demons, not to God. To gods they did not know, to new gods, to new arrivals, that your fathers did not fear. I'll tell you a secret. I think we mentioned this, but I'll just give you, just to throw out a piece of a gold nugget for next week. By 70 AD, they were offering burnt offerings to the Caesar of Rome at the temple. At the altar in the temple. Is that walking away from the covenant? Is that sacrificing to demons? To gods they did not know? Wait till we tell you a little bit more about Nero next week. God, new arrivals that your fathers did not fear. Wow. Okay, verse 18. Of the rock who begot you, you are unmindful, and you have forgotten the God who fathered you. Can you see the Hebrew poetry in that? Two different sentences, same thought. Can you see that? Okay. When you see things in the Bible, a lot of times when it's going, whoa, it's repeating a word or repeating a thought, it's Hebrew, that's Hebrew poetry. In English, in Hebrew, a lot of times it'll rhyme or be play on words. He spurns his sons and his daughters. Verse 19. He goes from mercy to justice. He's going to hide his face from a perverse generation. Because we've got to remember, never forget, just like there's two sides to you, there's two sides. Oops. There you go. There's two sides to the coin with God. And we talked about that last week a little bit. Spurn, what does that word mean? It's the word na'atz. Is that right? Na'atz? Literally means to reject with disdain. He will disdain his own people. But that's mostly because his people have disdained him. Reject, rebuff, turn down, treat with contempt, dismiss them. Give you an idea of what that word means. That he will spurn them. I think that's what that says, right? Verse 19, God spurns his sons and his daughters. Uh-oh. It sounds a lot like this. Depart from me, I never knew you. Okay. From mercy to justice to jealousy. And this is what happens here. Fires of wrath, the crops are destroyed. There's famine in the land. There's plagues and pestilence and beasts and cruel armies. And this is exactly the description of 70 AD. Trouble will overtake, but there will be strength to survive. It says 23 through 27. There's no understanding that the devastation in God's hand in hand is at work. Neither Israel's here's the dumb thing. Let's see, how do we say this? This is God's world, okay? There's two lines to stand in, right? You can get along, you can work with God and follow his covenant, or you can reject him and not follow his covenant, walk away from it. There's two lines. The nations out there mostly don't know who God is, right? And they're not standing in his line. He's against them, right? Israel, who decides to go over here and stand in their line, is now going to... Now what's going to happen to them? Once you're out of his line, you're out of his line.
You're not covered by him.
You're not covered by him. He's not looking at those nations. His face is not turned towards those nations like his face is turned towards his people when they're in covenant with him. His face and his blessings come, and his protection come, and his provision comes, right? Blah, 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 blah. There it is. But if they decide to go stand over here in this line, his face is hidden from them. And here they are supposed to be, what are they supposed to be doing? They're supposed to be representing him so that these people will come over and stand in that line. That's what's supposed to be going on, right? All right. Well, they have no understanding that the devastation is God's hand at work. Devastation is God's hand at work. Neither Israel or the enemies discern God's hand in this. If they were wise, they would see themselves being used as instruments of judgment by God and come to the conclusion of their own fate. That's the thing that's been happening in America for the last couple of years. People are going, oh, man, we've walked away from God. We need to turn back to him. And we need to come to him and repent before him. 2 Chronicles 7:14, and that's what's been happening. And eventually, these people are coming over here and standing back in God's line again. His face is now shining towards them. And he's hearing the prayers, and he's acting on our behalf. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The alternative is not pretty. That's exactly right. Verse 27, I'm going to take this word, and I looked it up because this verse did not make any sense to me. Would somebody please read this out loud? Bill, could you read that out loud?
Had I not feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should be misunderstood, lest they should say, our hand is high, and it is not Yehovah who has done all of this.
That sentence in that English does not make sense. So I got this guy's bragging to this guy. So I looked it up and put it in Hebrew. So then I looked this word up, which this word is that word, fear.
Lest their adversaries should be misunderstood, saying, our hand is high, and not Yehovah who has done this.
Okay. Had I not dwelt in the wrath of the enemy, because that's what God will do. It's his enemy. Somebody read the verse, the king's heart is in the hand of God, whatever. Even if it's a bad king, his hand is still in God's. He'll direct him to do what he needs to do, even if it's to bring devastation on his own people, to get their attention, or to discipline them, or to punish them. Had I not dwelt in the wrath of the enemy, God can dwell in the wrath of the enemy. He's not up there going, gee, I never saw that coming. Gee, when did those guys get those kind of weapons? He's not doing that, no.
Are you saying he's inciting the wrath of the enemy?
Well, he's dwelling in the, had I not dwelt in the wrath of the enemy, that's what he says. If he hadn't dwelled it, yeah, but the enemy, like Myra always tells me, the devil always goes too far. Okay, so God's his wrath is he's using the enemy to punish his people. Okay, there you go. He's using the enemy to punish his people, but then the enemy goes, look what we did. Look what we did. We just beat those Israelites. Their God isn't so big. They go too far. The enemy will always push his hand and play too far, too much, and go too far, and then it boomerangs back on their own head. Yeah. Because God will not share his... That's what happens. That's the way the world works. You see the little gears, the little box with the gears? All right.
Does that make sense? Lest they say, our hand. The enemy says, our hand. We did this. Not God's doing this to get his people's attention, but they're saying, we did this to them. Our hand is high. It is not Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh who has done this. They're not recognizing God in this. They go too far. No, now they've gone too far. God will use the enemy to discipline or punish his people, and sooner or later the enemy always goes way too far, taking pride in the destruction of Israel. They've gone too far. Does that make sense at all? Okay.
It's like Nebuchadnezzar when he's talking about his kingdom, how great it was and how he did it himself.
Yes, after he built himself a 90-foot statue of himself, yeah.
But then God brought him down to the point where he became like a beast in the field.
Yep, beast of the field. And that probably represents a lot of beasts in the field down through world history. That's a good point, Jeff. Thank you. That's really good. I remember that. Okay. So he's saying they have no understanding that the devastation is God's hand at work also. Neither Israel nor their enemies discern God's hand in this. If they were wise, they would see themselves being used. Did I just say this? That sounds familiar. If they were wise, they would see themselves being used as instruments of judgment by God and come to the conclusion of their own fate. Okay? So I took that same sentence and I put it into Hebrew, and I found these words that are here, that they were wise, that they would understand, that they would consider. And they're all words that mean that have that kind of a meaning. Wise, to act wisely, that they would understand, that this is a causative word, that they would cause them to act wisely, to understand, and they would consider, once again, to understand. We should consider that when God's enemy has the upper hand, it's because God's people are walking away from the covenant. That makes sense? Because this is God's world. And when God's people, when the people rejoice when the righteous are in charge, when righteousness is happening. That's why there's so much happiness going on. Yes?
So since God made the covenant in the first place.
God made the covenant in the first place.
It's his idea.
It's his idea. Yep.
He knew that we would not be able to keep it.
Yep.
So he keeps it for us.
Right.
And instead of us dying because we didn't break the covenant, he died for us. So he's done everything, the covenant.
And we can,
But we can say, never mind, I don't want it, and walk away from it.
Yep. That's your choice.
Even though he's done everything to maintain it.
Right.
And when we do that, he can't help us anymore.
Right.
He can't help us.
He can't, right, he can't help, right, there's not a whole lot he can do to help you. And we have to go backwards in time to find out where we can find that in the Bible. It's when he made cut the covenant with Abraham, whose name was Abram, I think at the time. His name was Abram. And he says, you go cut the animals, and he says, now you can't deal with this, Abraham, because I know your people are going to screw it up, okay? So you go to sleep, I'm going to walk both ways on this, it's called the walk of death. And if either one of us breaks the covenant, that guy's going to die. Well, can you see why Yeshua had to come and die? Because God's people couldn't keep the covenant. He knew that they couldn't keep it, and he made the provision for it. That was foreseen right there. They couldn't keep it. And we can't keep it. There's no way that we can keep all of this Torah. There's no way, not without the help of the Holy Spirit living inside you, which is what happened when Yeshua was resurrected and he went back to heaven. He said, I won't leave you as orphans. I'm going to send a helper to dwell in you. That's what Pentecost is all about. And even with the Holy Spirit living in us, guess what? We still have our flesh at work, right? But the penalty's been paid. And we can honor our God by keeping his Shabbat and by his festivals, his holidays. We can do what we can do, what we can understand we can do. Can we not?
Basically, that's saying that says God help us from ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even that, though, he says, I want you pure inside.
Yeah, he does.
On moon days,
And there is not any, the Torah calls for all kinds of blood sacrifices on a daily basis. 9 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Why don't we do that, Tina?
Well, I don't know, we just can't. I mean, it doesn't make sense anymore to do that.
Okay, and why doesn't it, you're right, it doesn't make sense to do that anymore. Why would it make any, Christ did it for us, yes. Cynthia? Yeah, and there is no more blood sacrifice that's going to cover the sin of anybody ever, 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 never again. That's how important that blood was. Yes, ma'am?
And there's no offerings because there is no temple.
No, there's, right. There's no temple. And it's very clear. Yeshua said, he said it in his own words. They're red words. They're in the Bible 3 or 4 times. You guys are the temple. You're the temple. You're the light of the world. You're the salt of the earth. He's going to build his temple with lively stones, with living stones, not out of concrete or Jerusalem stone anymore. The sacrificial system is done. That's what's done. That's what's complete. That's what's finished. When he said it is finished on the cross, that's what's finished. Right? Right. Right? Right, right, right. Okay, all right. Yeah.
Speaking a little earlier about the enemies getting proud.
Yes.
That when we hate our enemies, when we hold things against them and all this is like it's like playing into their pride.
Playing into their pride. Oh, that's good, Debbie. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And it's us not acknowledging God. We're playing into
Yeah.
that our enemies are in
Yeah.
control rather than
Right. And God said, and he tells them in the song, vengeance is mine and recompense is mine. You let me deal with that. You forgive them so I can deal with them.
But I
Almost.
still think we kind of think that we have a right to be angry and hateful. I mean, you can't just be.
It's like you're saying, like you made me do this, and when you say that you made me do it, means that you have control over me.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it's saying. When we
It's
say
a-
that you made me do this, we say, forgive or tell you, whatever. You made me do this because you got control
Yeah.
over me. I don't have control over myself.
There may be certain ones that we need to release into God's hands so God can deal with them. God, I'm not going to hold them in a prison because they hold me in a prison, and then we're both in prison, and that's not good for anybody. So you deal with them, right? Let them go so you can work in their lives, and hopefully they'll be there too someday, right? We pray for them that they would, yeah.
Sure,
Right?
pray for Maxine Waters.
Yeah, pray for Maxine Waters.
Pray God,
Thanks, Bill. Okay, I forgot what this big word even means here now. It must be all right. The enemies of Israel, God will use against Israel. So I think we've gotten this. Oh, this is really good. I want you to pay attention to this. Okay, this blew me away. All right, for their vine is the vine of Sodom. Okay, and their fields of Gomorrah, and their grapes are the grapes of gall, which is bitter, right? Even, do you remember when Yeshua was on the cross and he's going, I'm really thirsty, and they gave him a sponge full of gall? He even took the bitterness from us on the cross. Okay, their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the poison of serpents and the cruel venom of cobras. Remember all those fiery snakes that would bit them in the wilderness when they put up a brass snake on a pole, and when they bite them, have them look up there and they'll be okay. Bitter grapes make poison wine. That's the point, okay? The venom of a serpent. You will not believe what I found on the internet. I just kind of typed that into the Google Images and did a search. This is what I found. Are you ready? That is a cobra in a bottle of wine. Let me show you a bigger one. There's a market for this.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. Not in America so much as it is in the Asian countries. Is that bizarre?
Do they drink it?
They drink it. It's, yeah, there's a whiskey. It's called something Cobra something whiskey, and they well, it's got a cobra in it.
Oh.
Who does that? Witches or who?
No, this is it's in somewhere in Asia. Asian tradition.
I think, from what this is a somewhat educated guess.
Okay.
I think the alcohol nullifies the venom because of the proteins in the venom. I think it's disrupted because of the alcohol.
Because of the alcohol? Okay.
Yeah, but
Is that true for the scorpion? Because I found one of them that had the one brand that has a black scorpion, had a great big old black scorpion in the bottle. It was just.
What's the idea behind it? The reason they're.
Yeah. I mean, I just to show you that.
That was just coming from a chemist's point of view.
This just to show. This is what the nations would do. These people obviously don't have a covenant with God, right? I mean, look at that. Their clusters or their wine is the poison of serpents. Cruel venom of cobras. Wow.
When I was on the fire department, there was a guy that was raising cobras in Fort Collins, and he got bit, and we ran on the call. And he was in more pain than I've seen anybody
Wow.
from anything, because the venom of the cobra attacks the nervous system in such a way that it creates a huge amount of pain. I mean, he died.
Wow.
Wow.
But he was in horrible pain, and there was nothing. We gave him
What do you think do for him?
different sedatives, and it didn't help. You know,
Oh wow. See, that's a beautiful picture.
cruel venom.
Cruel, and that's a beautiful picture of. I mean, and you know, the evil one is depicted as a serpent, and going after people. It's a cruel thing when the serpent gets a hold of somebody. Thank you, Bill. What a picture. That's worth 1,000 words. Yucky.
One of the things, though, we forget that Paul had one of those things on his hand and he just shook it off. And that's what we have the power to do by the blood of Jesus.
Yeah. There you go.
Yes.
That's good. That's good, Dolores. That's true. Okay. All right, so the nations are reminded to think of the day of judgment that's going to come on them also, when we should be aware of that. It indicates a test for the nations where God's people have been dispersed also. Okay? It doesn't matter where you are, he will deal with the nations. So the nations would do well to join the God of Israel, and Israel would do well to be joined to the God of Israel, and everyone would do well to be joined to the God of Israel. That's where life is, okay? That's where life is. God of Israel. Hate, 39 through 43, it talked about hate. The nations have intense hatred for the God of Israel, and we're seeing the people of our divided nation and the hatred of Israel coming out of them. People that love Israel and that love God are not doing what we're seeing on the news at night. That's not our nature. That's not what we do. And when the nations lash out at Israel, they're really lashing out at God. So when our divided, who they're lashing out at, and with such lies and vitriol, it's just awful. So Myra, would you do me the favor and look up Psalm 2 and read that to us? Let's look at Psalm 2. When the nations lash out at Israel, they're really lashing out at God. Let's just see what Psalm 2 has to say about this, because this is really important. No, I didn't ask you. You didn't tell you were going to do this, but Psalm, page 755. Okay.
Psalm 2.
Yep. Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall hold them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath and distress them in his deep displeasure. Yet I have set my king on my holy hill Zion. I will declare the decree the Lord has said to me. You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Now therefore be wise, O kings. Be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are those who put their trust in him.
Okay. Isn't that... Blessed are those who put their trust in him. That word, kiss the Son, and it's funny because on every mezuzah, when Jewish people come into their house, they reach out and they touch the mezuzah. They kiss their hand and touch the mezuzah and kiss their hand, right? Is that how they do it? That way. They touch the mezuzah, kiss their hand, or kiss their hand and touch the mezuzah, one of the two.
Whichever.
Yeah, whichever. But they're literally kissing the Son. I mean, most mezuzahs have the Shaddai sign on that, which is a name for God, and that's who Yeshua is. I mean, they've been doing that. That's part of their... We don't do that when we walk in and out of our houses. We have a mezuzah on our house, maybe, but we don't reach out and kiss the Son. We've already done that. Christians have already done that. We've already... It literally means to embrace the Son, embrace him. I mean, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with doing it. But they've been doing that for a very long time. Blessed are those who put their trust in Shaddai. Okay. All right. So 44 through 47. Who's got the... Deb, you've got it right there. You read. 44 through 47.
44? Okay. So Moses came with Joshua, the son of Nun, and spoke all the words of this song in the hearing of the people. Moses finished speaking all these words to all of Israel, and he said to them, set your hearts on all the words which I testify among you today, which you shall command your children to be careful to observe all the words of the law. For it is not a futile thing for you, because it is your life, and by this word you shall prolong your days in the land which you cross over the Jordan to possess.
Okay. Now, all right, so Moses puts all these words in their mouth, and he's telling them, set your hearts on the words. Concentrate on these words. Pay attention to these words. God's in these words. And your life will be in these words. These words are not a futile thing. These words are not going away. This covenant that we have with God is not going away. It will be here. It will be here to judge us. It will be here to help us. It will be here to provide for us. It will be here to protect us. It's our choice. That's the neat thing about Torah. That's the neat thing about the God of Israel. It's still, you're still an individual with individual choices. It's still a choose your own adventure story. He's just wanting everybody to choose wisely, because there are consequences to our choices. Okay. Myra, you want to finish up 48 to 52?
Sure. Then the Lord spoke to Moses that very same day, saying, go up this mountain of Avarim, Mount Nebo, which is in the land of Moab, across the Jericho. view the land of Canaan, which I give to the children of Israel as a possession, and die on the mountain which you ascend, and be gathered to your people, just as Aaron your brother died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people, because you trespassed against me among the children of Israel at the waters of Meribah, Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin, because you did not hallow me in the midst of the children of Israel. Yet you shall see the land before you, though you shall not go there into the land which I am giving to the children of Israel.
Okay. Moses, pack your bag. You're going to climb one more mountain, and you're going to be gathered to your people. And why was that? Because he didn't hallow God in front of the children of Israel way back when. You remember what happened that day? Yeah, he hit the rock twice. Twice, I think, yeah. He got mad, and he said, he was just at his end of he was frustrated. He was frustrated with these people.
I think the rock that he struck symbolizes God.
Yeah,
And that he was really struck God.
Yeah, exactly. God describes himself here 4 times. I think it's 4 times that he's the rock, right? He's the rock. Don't strike the rock, speak to the rock. Isn't that, this is the rock that's going to help you. Let's don't get frustrated at it. Let's just talk to, I'm going to go out and talk to a rock. That's still better going out and hitting a rock. I want to remind you of the was way back in the earlier part where he was talking about the eagle's nest and so forth, and how he brought them to himself on the wings of eagles. Okay, and this is such. I have a couple eagle stories in my repertoire, and this is the one I like. I love this story, so I'm just going to share it with you. So eagles mate for life. And they live a very long time, and they have babies every year. And how a lady eagle chooses her mate is by how he is able. He shows off for her, and is when they're young, obviously, and she flies up way in the air, and she drops a stick, and see how he can go down and grab it. And he's showing off. He says, yeah, see, didn't I do good? She says, really? You did really good, Mr. Eagle. That was really nice. Let's see if you can do a heavier one. So he does a heavier, I think they go through this procedure 3 or 4 times, and each time the stick gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the reason that they do that is because this is how they teach their baby eagles how to fly. It said something about stirring up the nest. Stir up the nest. Okay, kid, hop on my back. We're going up high. And he takes them up high, and then the parent eagle, mama eagle, drops them out, and and the daddy eagle is flying around, and if that eagle's in trouble at all, he'll go down and grab that baby eagle and take him back to the nest and say, let's wait another week or so till you get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Isn't that neat? They're a really strong family, and that's how God looks at you. He stirs you up. He's going to test you. He'll test you. It might feel like you're falling, but he'll come after you and he'll get you. He'll get you.
I read that the word refuge in Hebrew means to lift up, and he lifts up above the
Yeah.
cloud of the storm.
Yeah. And eagles are real good at that, about flying up above. They catch the wind and they go up above. And so there's some really beautiful stories that we can learn from animals. Somebody was telling me. Who was telling me? Bob was telling me, maybe. At any rate, I think that's all I've got for you today. But
Susan, can I sing verse?
Please.
Verse, let me see, where is it? Jesus is a rock. Verse 4.
Please.
Here it is. I kind of adjusted this. I'm going to do 2 verses of it, and I'm going to say, our God is a rock.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go, Jesus is a rock.
Okay.
Okay. Our God is a rock, his work is perfect. All of his ways are judgment. A God of truth and without iniquity. Just and right is he. Just and right is he, hallelujah. Just and right is he. Our God, where I lost my place. A God of truth and without iniquity. Just and right is he.
Oh, yay.
Jesus is our rock. Come on and sing with me. Jesus is our rock, his work is perfect. All of his ways are justice. A God of truth and without iniquity. Just and right is he. Just and right is he. Hallelujah. Just and right is he. A God of truth and without iniquity. Just and right is he.
Yay! Yay! That's great. All right.
Now,
Take her.
the Song of Moses. Now, we were supposed to learn that.
Yes,
and
yes.
Singing it. Yeah. Sing it to our children.
That's right. That's awesome. All right.